This is how you write fanfiction for your own book. Charm is the 5th book in the Crave series by Tracy Wolff, and it was just wonderful in like the absolute most unhinged way possible. If you have not read all of the Crave books up through Charm, go check out my Crave video. I did a little like synopsis overview of what this series is about, but since that video it has truly gone off the rails. So just know that there is so much more to come once you start the series. I have a lot I want to talk about, so let's just dive right in. Goodbye to people who have not read Charm. I can't believe we got this book. I thought I was gonna have to go into the depths of fanfiction to find this story. And no, Tracy Wolff just wrote it for us. How excellent. This is the time period where we were stuck in Grace's head. So the time of the 3 months when Grace was a frozen gargoyle that she does not remember until the very end of the last book, when Hudson like told her what the promise was for the promise ring, and she was like, oh my gosh, I remember. And then it's like swoop back in time, and then we lived that whole time period, which was years of time. We know that time works different in different spaces, and apparently in Grace's mind, 3 months in the normal physical world is years in her brain world. They're stuck together in Hudson's lair, and I guess that since Hudson is in her mind, that's where she's able to pull the lair from. It's not like she'd ever been there before, but it was like a perfect depiction. And they're stuck in the lair. They can't try to leave because there's a dragon outside, and initially we have to escape the dragon. And luckily, like, we're in the lair, but it's clear that the dragon is going to keep coming back and trying to break in, and eventually it's going to be successful. At this point, these two hate each other. Hudson sort of knows what's going on. Grace is like, am I dead? Once she realizes that they're locked in her mind, she thinks that the reason she's frozen Hudson with her is because she knew that Hudson was going to kill Jackson. Well, knew it, she thought. And so they are stuck in this purgatory prison until Hudson is reformed enough that Grace believes that he's not a threat. And after the last books, I was like, I cannot believe we're in prison again. Grace thinks that the way for her to do this is to show Hudson what a happy childhood is like, to be rehabbed, because he would sort of like heal his inner child, is sort of my understanding. The thing that I didn't understand for a good portion of the book was the dragon outside and how they're like, it's gonna come in and kill us. And I was like, well, how is the dragon real if we're in Grace's mind? Maybe they have a physical presence in this other space that's not necessarily like the real world, but it's not the real world. Hudson, his whole plan is like, I'm not getting rehabbed by this like 18-year-old girl. He's hundreds of years old. He experienced hundreds of years of a horrible childhood. He's just gonna try and get Grace to let him out. And to do that, he thinks he just needs to annoy her. So he starts playing his music really loud all the time, does axe throwing practice. He steals all of her Pop-Tarts, which is a capital offense in Grace's mind. And so Grace's solution is, I'm not going to let Hudson go out where the dragon is. I'm going to divide the room via One Direction duct tape. 8 weeks go by. At this point, I was still thinking, like maybe the time span is like, it was her for 3 months as a gargoyle, and maybe we're in her, brain for like 6 months. I was so far off. At this point, they're still not friends. Like, the fact that they went months with each other and genuinely, like, they barely talk to each other. At one point, Hudson is like, I'm gonna try and annoy her again, and he is doing bird calls. When he said, I'm an amateur ornithologist, I lost it. Thanksgiving arrives, and it's very sad. This is probably, I think, the second, round of holidays that Grace is going to go through without her parents. And so because Hudson's in her mind, he can purposefully or not go through her memories. And as she's remembering all of these memories about Thanksgiving with her parents growing up, like, Hudson sees all of these things. He starts to have like compassion for her, and he is like slowly starting to like her. And so he decides that they're going to make a pumpkin pie together. It doesn't turn out good, but it at least gets them like interacting again. They get this close to like having their first kiss, but no, dragon attacks at that exact moment. We have to go running through the forest and mountains outside of the lair, which, like, I was so confused about whether or not this is all Grace's invention. And I feel like I never got an actual answer to that. Like, her trapping her and Hudson, was she just taking them to a different part of the world? Kind of how, like, the Dragon Court is above New York. Like, is there a separate space when you lock someone in your mind with you? Because Grace, the whole time, like multiple times over and over, she's like, there is no way I could have imagined this. Like, I am not that creative. I would not have thought of this. Like, why would I have wanted a crazy dragon chasing us? If it was up to me, I would have poofed him away. And I just continued to think this, particularly when we landed in Purple Land. Apparently, it's the Shadow World, but it's just like a normal world, except everything's purple. We end up finding a family in the Shadow World who is super nice. Like, they take both of them in. The whole time, I truly believed that they were going to go sell Hudson and Grace out to the Shadow Queen, because they have this Shadow Queen who rules over everything, and she wants to leave the Shadow World. And she's going to think that because Grace and Hudson got in, that they're going to know a way to get out. Luckily, the family doesn't sell them out, but eventually the Shadow Queen does find out where they are, so she's on the way. Father of the Purple family comes to them with a bag, and he's like, you have to leave, go to the village, and find my cousin who will take care of you. Instead of going directly to the inn that they're supposed to go to, they find a band of traveling performers. There's going to be some sort of music competition in the main city of this shadow country, I guess. They have a little town in the middle. It has a mayor, but, you know, like, he's under the Shadow Queen. Not exactly sure how the politics work in this area. The band kind of takes pity on them, and they're like, well, why don't you come with us? Like, you need a way into the city. You're not going to get in unless you have, like, this passport. I don't remember. There's a reason they can't get in. And they're like, but if you come with us, you'll be able to get through with us. So we do that, and part of we had to do, I don't remember if it was an audition, impromptu performance, something, where we're supposed to go on, and we're supposed to be part of the act, and Grace cannot sing to save her life. And they're like, we're gonna put you in a super tight dress, just throw you out there on stage, no one's gonna notice. And Grace is super uncomfortable in this teeny tiny, like, dress. And so Hudson, my understanding was Hudson is like, I'm an okay-ish singer, but I don't want to sing in front of people. So I'm going to go out there and sing and try to make Grace comfortable by making myself uncomfortable so that she'll want to come out and perform and it won't be awkward for her. Hudson goes out and performs a One Direction song. And then the whole crew goes out and they all perform together. Grace has, like, a tambourine or something. At this point, we believe the portal between the worlds never opens, and it's sort of like an accident that they got through, and the last time this happened was like 1,000 years ago. So Grace and Hudson are trying to grapple with the fact that they're gonna live in the purple shadow realm forever. On top of the fact that it only gets dark once a month in the shadow. Let's talk about this. Shadow realm. It's always sunny. Anyway, it gets dark once a month, which means that Hudson is going to be in a constant state of starvation, especially if he refuses to feed on Grace during those couple of days, which right now he is refusing, and he's like starving all the time. And I'm like, at some point, you're gonna have to break. And Grace is probably the most appetizing one there because everybody else is purple. But for Grace, like, obviously it's very difficult for her to kind of, like, fully come to the understanding that she is never going home. On top of that, Hudson tells her that he doesn't even see the mating bond between Jackson and her anymore. Like, it is completely dissolved. He does, however, see the beginnings of a little blue string forming, which is their mating bond. Trying to find a job was the funniest thing ever. Hudson finds one pretty much right away. He's like, I sell paint now, like, at a hardware store. Like, he works at Ace Hardware, and he sells paint to people, and he's like, all of the colors are purple. I can't tell the difference, but I guess I'm doing okay because they hired me. And Grace is like, I've tried every job this town has to offer, and she can't do any of them. It's so funny. She, like, fails epically at baking. And then, what was the other stuff that she tried? She tried something else, and it did not go well. Like, I think she worked in an office for a while. She eventually ends up working at, like, a retail shop. And Hudson eventually moves on to be a teacher, which was very cute. Like, that's not something I really would have pictured, but, like, watching him play with the little purple children, very cute. Oh, by the way, this whole time, they stole some little girl's dog. So when we left, that family, that when we first got here and we were with the purple family, they were on a farm. They had all these animals and stuff, and one of them was Smokey, and I know that she's not really an animal, but she is. Like, she's some sort of shadow something. She's a dog, basically. And when they leave the farm, like, this dog loves Hudson so much. And when they leave the farm, they, like, took the dog with them. I was like, you took some 9-year-old girl's pet. Cool. They have this pet running around who hates Grace more than anything on this planet, and she loves Hudson. And I thought that was just like the funniest little side trail. We get to Starfall. A dragon attacks. Their dragon from outside of Grace's mental lair has found them. This is when we find out that the dragon might be a time traveler. But this is when Grace turns to stone for the first time ever. They barely manage to fight this dragon off. And so the thing is that the dragon can come every month during those 3 days of darkness. These dragons are a creation of the god of time, who we met in the last book. He was super cool. And so he's made these dragons so that whenever somebody like crosses this barrier, the way that Grace and Hudson have, a dragon is created. And its only goal is to kill the person who broke the time-space continuum. Also, there was another dragon. And so we're like, maybe it was like Hudson's dragon that we killed, and now there's one dragon left. We have Kiva, who is one of the musicians that we met up with earlier. We're now friends, by the way. And she's like, oh, Grace, you turned to stone, you're a gargoyle. Cool. Like, and Grace is like, excuse me? At one point, she even flies through the dragon, which, can I just say, for being a gargoyle for 2 seconds, she's doing pretty well. She knows that she's stone, and she doesn't fully understand like how strong a stone person is, because she accidentally flies right through the dragon covered in blood, which quite honestly was disgusting. Like, it was so gross. Luckily, battle is over. The dragon goes away to lick its wounds. The other one's dead. And so at this point, Grace and Hudson are like the town heroes. And also, I think this moment was sort of, weirdly enough, a bonding moment for them, because they're starting to sort of show their feelings for one another, which, by the way, it's probably been like 3 or 4 months, maybe more, in this shadow world. It is taking them forever. Can you imagine coming back and being Hudson after they come out of the 3 months of stone gargoyledom, and Grace doesn't know who he is, and he's like, I have to start this process over, are you kidding? Because it took so long. They finally like kind of talk about their feels, and Grace knows that Hudson is starving. Since it's dark out and they can make it for those 3 days, because Hudson, once they digest, they can go back out in the sun, but once they first have the blood, they cannot do that. He will turn into a Dorito. So Hudson drinks her blood, and it's obviously like a very close moment between them. We have brunch with the mayor. He's like the Wizard of Oz, sort of. Like, he came in to the shadow world and helped start this town of purple people, and he's like, I self-sacrificially will help rule over the people, and then he just stayed there for 1,000 years. But notably, he has these pictures all over his house of him and his daughter. His daughter is not in the shadow realm with us. He's the one who sort of drops the idea into their mind that there's a chance, if they let the dragons kill them, that they will go back to their normal life. By the way, Hudson has not kissed her in a month. They have not talked about it at all. And Grace sees him starving at work. In between his classes with the kiddies, he's like bent over in pain because he's so hungry. Luckily, it's been that month, so it's almost time for it to be dark again. And so they finally like get it together as a couple. He drinks her blood because he definitely needs to be fueled for this next dragon battle. The dragon comes back, and it is another like horrible fight. Everybody almost dies, and then at one point the dragon is going to spew fire at Hudson, and instead of Hudson taking the brunt of that, Smokey takes it, their loyal shadow dog. So then after this, Grace and Hudson kill the dragon, and when the dragon is killed, it releases gold sparkly magic, and the mayor absorbs the magic, which I was like, that's weird. Like, why are you doing that? And we find out a little bit more about the mayor's past, about how he tried to change time because his daughter died. And so he was trying to go back in time and like figure out how to fix it. And theoretically, that's how he ended up getting stuck in this shadow world, and he hasn't been able to find a way back out. But he does know that if he can get the power from one time dragon, like absorb it into himself, then he can ride another time dragon out of the shadow world. And then he can go back to his normal life, theoretically, at the time before his daughter passed, maybe make some sort of change that keeps that from happening. But here's the thing, if he manages to open this time-space rift, I don't know why all these people think that he'd be able to go with him. There's like all the little villagers are on two sides. One of them is like, half these people want to go to the real world. They understand that this is the shadow world. They understand that there's more out there than just this tiny little village. The rest of the people want to stay. They're like, we've, built this from scratch, and they enjoy their life. Like, it's a cute town. It's not like they're sitting around doing nothing. Like, they do have lives there, and they don't want to leave that or lose it. And also, sidebar, that if the mayor leaves, then the town disappears. It had something to do with some sort of curse. And then, like, one of their friends is like, luckily we have a secret weapon. And then Hudson's like, is that secret weapon Grace? I was like, Grace is not a secret weapon. Like, I'm so sorry. I love Grace. She's a great girl. But she's been a gargoyle for 2 minutes. She doesn't know how to control her powers, like, almost at all. And, like, they don't have that much fighting experience. I was like, I don't understand why you think... Like, in my opinion, a lot of the times, Grace gets by, like, by the skin of her teeth. Like, she's really scrappy, and that's important. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know if we should, like, should you always be banking on Grace like this? And then our friends are like, no, we're not talking about Grace fighting. And I was like, what are we talking about then? No, these friends are like, hey, if Grace gets a hold of the time dragon and turns to stone with the time dragon, and she will be stuck with him, but all of us will be safe, and the mayor won't be able to take this other time dragon out of the shadow world, and we'll all be fine. And I was like, well, this works out great for everyone except for Grace. We also find out that the mayor can only die from a time dragon, but we're like, oh, is there even another time dragon? Like, is this a problem at all? Because, like, we killed both of the dragons that were Hudson and Grace's dragon, because only a time dragon is created when somebody passes the barrier. And so, theoretically, the mayor killed his dragon, and then Grace and Hudson killed their dragons. So, like, how are we going to get this fourth one? Which, now that I'm thinking about it, how did that conversation happen? Why did Grace need to be a statue with a dragon if they weren't even sure if there was another dragon? Anywho, they're like, oh, the mayor came with someone. Like, did you know that? No, why would we have known? Apparently, when the mayor came, he purposefully came to the shadow world with a gargoyle. And he purposely came back to the shadow world. He knew that if he came back here, he could, mess with time and go save his daughter. But if he does that, like, it's gonna mess up the whole town, like we said, the curse or whatever. And then it's gonna mess up the real world too. Like, you never know what playing with time is gonna do. And so the other companion that came with him was a gargoyle. And so she is the statue in the center of the town that's holding on to a dragon. It's a gargoyle. I was like, why did nobody say anything until now? So there is one more time dragon, and if that one is released and the mayor takes it, then he's gonna mess up everything. So we go and talk to the gargoyle, and she's like, yes, I've been here for like 1,000 years, stuck with this dragon. And she's like, and I would continue to do this forever, because that's what gargoyles do. We protect people, which was like, the same thing that we talked about in the last book. And so this gargoyle knows that if she releases the dragon, like, it's what the mayor could use to go mess up all of time. And then the gargoyle, like, Grace is talking to the gargoyle, and she's like, if you release it, would you let us take care of the dragon? And, like, that would stop the mayor from leaving. I was kind of confused. And then the gargoyle is like, yeah, I can do that, but the second I release this dragon, it's gonna kill me with dragonfire, because that's her time dragon. The whole purpose of the dragon was to destroy her, and she's pretty angry after being locked up for 1,000 years. Like, there's nothing that would stop it. And then also, like, she's like, oh, sidebar, I know that I'm poisoned. I don't know how I know this, which obviously it was from, what's his name? Cyrus poisoning all of the gargoyles, but she doesn't know that. And she's like, I can feel it. So even if the dragon didn't kill me with fire, like, it'd take another 10 minutes and then I'd be done from this poison. So she's like, you have to take care of it. What exactly did she say? She said something weird. She said something about, like, anything, like the queen of the gargoyles, I would do anything, something like that, something along the lines of that made Grace think, oh my gosh, this is the gargoyle queen. And I was like, so close, babe, so close. I'm glad that this was cleared up, because I was like, oh no, like these girls are not gonna communicate properly and Grace isn't gonna know that she's the queen of the gargoyles. And luckily, like, the lady cleared it up real quick, and so Grace is like kind of a little dazed. She's like, okay, I have to kill a dragon. I'm now the queen of the gargoyles. Like, there's just a lot going on. Hudson gets her a promise ring, like a purple one. The one that we got in the other book was like silver. And so she now has like a Shadow World promise ring. Very cute. I thought he was proposing, like straight up. They had been together for like a while. I know a good portion of that time was them figuring out their feels and not talking to each other. But I truly believed that Hudson was going to propose. Also, the Shadow Queen is coming because she knows that the mayor is going to try and break the time-space continuum. She's heard about Hudson and Grace, and so she wants to get out. The dark time is almost over. We're going to have the gargoyle release the dragon. The gargoyle's going to die. We're going to have to fight the dragon, and we're going to have to kill the dragon before the sun rises, and the mayor is going to be able to use the magic he absorbed from the last dragon to hop onto this other time dragon and ride it into the sunset and go destroy all of time. But here we go with another Grace pep talk. She's like 18 and she's like riling up this town of purple people. I just really can't handle it, to be honest. So, since the dragon sort of controls time, it's freezing all these people, like kind of the same way Grace can freeze people because she's a demigod. And then also at some point, we realize that if we kill the dragon and the mayor absorbs that power too, it would be like filling a cup of water with too much water. It would explode. I gotta pull it together. Okay. So we do that, and we kill the dragon after a lot of fighting. I'm surprised we made it through the way we did, because, like, the Shadow Queen was there, and she was like, I want in on this. And so she's sending out all these shadow creatures that are, like, horrifying and scary. I'm pretty sure at one time there was a shadow cockroach in Grace's mouth. I think I kind of blocked out the full depiction of that. And then she almost gets mauled by wolves and she turns into stone to stop that from happening, but then she can't move. The mayor absorbs that extra power and we get rid of the mayor. Then, because the mayor dies, there's now the dragon, the two powers of dragon in the sky, and Grace is like, you know what, I'm just gonna absorb it and be self-sacrificial. But here's the thing. I was like, why are we doing that? Because you just saw it kill the mayor. And if the mayor died with that magic inside of him and it came back anyway, like just came back up into the air and started searching for someone else, and that person is Grace, what do you think is gonna happen to you when you die by this magic? Absorb too much magic and die. Magic comes back out into the world, chooses the next person. It just goes on and on and on. I was like, there has to be a better way, and you need to start running so that we can figure this out in like the next 5 seconds. But no, Hudson sees her from afar and has quite a long inner monologue. I was like, you're not going to make it if we're going to talk about Grace for 15 minutes. But he runs and goes and covers her before the magic hits her. In doing so, we return back to the lair. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I thought at this point we were definitely going to wake up in Cadmere Academy. Not the case. And then Grace is like, I have to be dead. And I was like, girl, I don't know how you're alive. And then she's like, oh my gosh, if I'm alive, then Hudson's dead. And he's just asleep in the bed over there. So I was like, okay, so we made it out unscathed. Hudson's like, all right, we're getting out of here. And he's talking about going back to Cadmere. And he's like, yeah, when we go, there's like a really good chance I'm gonna be stuck in your head. He's like, I won't have a body, but when we go back, like, there's a spell you can perform, and, you know, one of the things is really hard to get, the dragon bone, I guess, but once you perform that spell, I'll have a body, and we can be together. And I guess at that point, that's when they return to Cadmere Academy, and she stops being a gargoyle. It picks back up after court, like the very end of the book, and so we're right back at the, like, moment where Grace is like, I remember everything, because Hudson had said the words on the promise ring. And now we look down at the promise ring, and it is a mix of the purple and the silver one. Then, right at the end, I could not believe what was happening. Because, like we mentioned so briefly before that if you die by the dragon fire, it either kills you or it might send you to a different place in time. Which is why Grace and Hudson like briefly thought like, should we just let the dragon flame us and then maybe we'll go back to our regular lives? And so they're like, oh, Smokey died by dragon fire. Let's go find her. Like, there's a really good chance she's somewhere else. I was like, somewhere else could be anywhere else. Anywhere. So now we're gonna go do some time traveling to save not even our dog. I know that was like fully a rant, but I had a great time reading this. It really did. Like, it just felt like fan fiction in like the best way. I wanted to explore this part of the storyline, and I think this might be my second favorite in the series, like just because I love Grace and Hudson so much, and we got to see their enemies to lovers arc again, like in a different way, which is super fun. And then I think my first favorite is still book 2, because I loved the part of Hudson being trapped in red. Funnily enough, that is, you know, the first enemies to lovers arc, because that's just my favorite trope ever. So I'm excited to go into Cherish. I hope we find Smokey quickly. I've been flying through these books, that's how I know that I love a book series, is when I just really just want to get through them. Like, I want to know what happens, but at the same time, sometimes when I do that, I feel like I'm forgetting a couple details here and there. So would appreciate any clarification. I would love to know your thoughts. Did you like this as a book 5? Because I know it really is like a complete side quest from our storyline, and theoretically, like, we could have continued the series without knowing this. So were you happy to find out that this was the next book, or were you like me, just like, oh my gosh, it's real fan fiction, like canon fan fiction? Let me know in the comments. Please like this video if you liked it, click subscribe if you want to talk about more book stuff. My name's Caitlin, thanks for watching. Bye!